Welcome back to our lecture that introduces you to human resource management and explains how to do work analysis. In the final section of this lecture, you will learn about ONET and how to use it for work analysis purposes, but also how to use it to develop your own career. Now, what is ONET? ONET is short for the Occupational Information Network Database. It's a comprehensive database that provides the information on practically all occupations in the United States. The database has been developed in the first decade of 21st century. So that means that all information in the database is current and up to date. It's by far the best occupational database in the world. The limitation is that it's based and is also coached in the North American language of occupations. Also, some of the information it provides is limited to the US. However, these minor limitations notwithstanding, overall, for the purposes of work analysis, ONET provides an absolutely invaluable resource. The database and associated resources are freely available and easily accessible on the internet, which makes it an excellent practical tool for you to use. What exactly does ONET include? Firstly, the ONET is based on something called ONET Content Model, an overarching framework that describes the key elements of each occupation, that is to say, all elements that are important for work analysis. From ONET Online, you can download a copy, and we have already done so for you, and you can download it from your online module. Second part of ONET is questionnaires. These questionnaires have been developed from the content model, and they're used by the ONET team to collect the information about occupations. You can use these questionnaires for your own work analysis projects. They are available online from ONET and also from your online module. The core part of ONET is, of course, its occupation data. And last but not least, to help organizations use the information collected by ONET, the ONET authors have also provided a so-called toolkit for business, a set of guidelines for using ONET for various business purposes, with examples and case studies for illustration. And this is also available for download from ONET website. Now, let's look at these resources more closely. We'll start with the content model. The ONET content model is a general framework that provides a comprehensive catalog of all work analysis descriptors related to the three key parts of work analysis: work activities, work attributes, and work context. It arranges them slightly differently from how we covered it in the fourth part of this lecture. It groups them into 6 areas: 3 worker-oriented areas, and 3 work-oriented areas. So work-oriented areas are worker characteristics, worker requirements, and experience requirements. And work-oriented areas are occupational requirements, workforce characteristics, and occupation-specific information. For each of these 6 areas, the ONET content model provides an exhaustive list of categories and subcategories. For example, what worker characteristics do you need to know? According to ONET, these include the obvious ones, abilities, but also less obvious, such as occupational interests, work values, and work styles. Some of the broader categories are subdivided into subcategories, and these into specific items. For instance, what kind of abilities are there? There are 4 categories of abilities: cognitive, physical, psychomotor, and sensory. Each category or group of abilities consists of specific abilities. For example, physical ability includes physical strength, endurance, flexibility, balance, and coordination. The content model has been developed by a highly experienced team of researchers who have undertaken a systematic review of best available research evidence. Their work, the content model and the questionnaires, has been reviewed and validated by panels of experts convened by the US government. And so all these categories, subcategories, and specific items and their definitions are based on a very comprehensive review and analysis of essentially all research related to work and occupational analysis. Altogether, there's a massive number of items that ONET uses to describe an occupation. 57 different descriptors for work context, 41 descriptors for work activities, 33 dimensions for knowledge, 52 items to cover abilities, 35 types of skills, and 16 categories of work styles. We will see shortly some examples of these items when we take a look at the ONET questionnaires. So, on to the ONET questionnaires. ONET questionnaires are just that, data collection instruments that include questions and scales for responses to these questions. There are 7 main ONET questionnaires covering respectively knowledge, skills, abilities, education, experience and training, work styles, work activities, and work context. So let's look at most of them. Let's take, for starters, ONET questionnaire on knowledge. ONET defines knowledge as sets of facts and principles needed to address problems and issues that are part of a job. ONET covers 33 different areas of knowledge, from knowledge of food production to knowledge of transportation, to knowledge of history and archaeology, to knowledge of media and communications. And here's an example of the area of knowledge, sales and marketing, and the questions associated with that. Each knowledge area has 2 questions. One asks how important this particular area of knowledge is for this particular occupation, and the respondent needs to rank it from not important to extremely important. And the other question asks about the level of knowledge required to perform the job, giving some examples towards this level. Here, for instance, a lowish level of sales and marketing knowledge is the knowledge that would be required to sell cakes at a bake sale. And the highest level of knowledge would require developing a marketing plan for a nationwide service. Take another area, skills. ONET defines a skill as the ability to perform a task well. The ONET defines 35 broad skill types. One example of the skill is monitoring. And remember, we talked about monitoring when we talked about managerial roles. Monitoring or assessing performance of yourself, other individuals or organizations to make improvements or take corrective action are all parts of monitoring. Again, like with knowledge, ONET distinguishes between the importance of skill and the level of skill required for the job. Next, abilities. We've already had a peek at abilities when we talked about the ONET content model. More generally, ability is defined as an enduring talent that can help a person do their job. And here's one example of ability: originality. Originality is defined as the ability to come up with unusual or clever ideas about a given topic or situation, or to develop creative ways to solve a problem. Now think about your job. Firstly, how important is originality to perform your job? So, and see whether you can rank it on this particular scale. And then, what level of originality is required to perform it? And again, look at the examples on the slide, see whether you can rank or rate your job on this particular scale. ONET also includes a questionnaire for work styles. Work styles are personal characteristics that can affect how well someone does a job. An example of work style is self-control, maintaining composure, keeping emotions in check, controlling anger, and avoiding aggressive behavior, even in a very difficult situation. Here the questionnaire is less complex. It does not ask about different levels of style, such as self-control. It just asks whether this particular style is important on the job and how important it is. Next, work activities. A work activity is a set of similar actions that are performed together in many different jobs. One example of work activities is judging the qualities of objects, services, or people. Another example is scheduling work and activities. And finally, there's a questionnaire on work context. This covers work setting and its possible hazards, the pace of work, and the interpersonal aspects of work. For instance, the questionnaire includes a question about the exposure to hazardous conditions. Yes, and these conditions include, high voltage electricity, flammable materials, explosives, chemicals. Also includes a question about the impact of your decisions on other people or the image, reputation, and financial resources of your organization. It also has a question about dealing with external customers and general public. So that's the overview of the questionnaires. Now, to help you understand various work-related areas important for work analysis, and to familiarize you with the ONET, in your online module, we invite you to undertake an activity that asks you to complete the ONET questionnaires for your job, and then answer a few reflective questions. Do note that this is just an activity rather than a portfolio exercise or a unit task. This means that you're not required to report on whether you have done it or how you have done it. But I would encourage you to do this activity nevertheless. Why? Firstly, because the questionnaires, as you have just seen, cover all key descriptors of work analysis. And so, this activity will help you gain the working knowledge of the core categories of work analysis. It also shows you how work analysis data can be collected through a specially designed questionnaire. Secondly, it's a good idea for you to familiarize yourself with these questionnaires because you can use these questionnaires for your own work analysis project in your organization. You can use them as is and ask incumbents to complete them, or you can modify those by adding your own questions. Note, however, that it's recommended not to remove any questions because all of them are important parts of work analysis. And finally, as you do this for your own work, it will help you get a more systematic understanding of what your work entails and the knowledge, abilities, skills, and other attributes it requires. And so this could be very important for your training development and also for your CV. For your CV especially, this will help you articulate and describe your work and knowledge, skills, and other characteristics in your CV, resume, and job interviews. By the way, I and the literature employs the abbreviation XAO quite frequently. And XAO stands for knowledge, skills, abilities, and other attributes. Now, going back to our journey through the ONET, let's now look at the ONET occupation data. ONET really does provide the data on any occupation you can think of. For instance, if you search for managers, you literally get hundreds of occupations that have manager in the title, from spa managers to wind energy project managers. For each occupation, you can get 3 types of reports. A summary report that provides an overview of the selected occupation, focusing on the most important descriptors. Details report that displays all descriptors for selected occupation and, where available, a rating of how important each descriptor is. And custom reports. This allows you to select 14 different content areas to generate tailored report about occupation. You can select the type of information, level, importance, frequency that you want displayed. So let's see what you get in a report. Let's take medical and health services managers. We usually have a couple of such managers in each cohort, so hopefully we'll have some in this cohort, and they, I'm sure, can relate and can fill us in on further details. And they also can tell us to what extent ONET reflects their own experiences of working in this occupation. Anyway, these managers are the people who plan, direct or coordinate medical and health services in hospitals, clinics, public health agencies or similar organizations. They could be called clinical director, health manager, nurse manager, practice administrator or other titles. And ONET actually supplies all different titles for you. Now, so what does the report tell you? The report will tell you all about these various categories of the worker and the work that you need to know for work analysis, and that are covered in the ONET content model. For instance, knowledge. What knowledge do medical and health services managers need to possess? The report says that out of 33 areas of knowledge, 12 are particularly important. And in this excerpt, I've just cut and pasted the top 9 of these. All these knowledge areas, as you can see, are ranked for importance, with importance score given on the left. The report also tells you what skills the job requires. Again, it gives you a list of skills ranked in order of importance. Here, it appears that the top skill is speaking, followed by critical thinking and active listening. And so is with abilities. For medical and health services managers, out of 52 abilities, 14 are important. And this is again my excerpt that presents the top 12, starting from oral expression and ending with category flexibility. Each ability is, of course, helpfully described and rated in terms of importance. Or take work styles. From the report, we can see that all 16 are actually important, and I've accepted the top few, from attention to detail, that leads the list, to initiative. Again, you have the ratings of each style and its description. Work values are global aspects of work that are important to a person's satisfaction. Do you want to know what medical and health service managers value most? Look at the work values part of the report, and it turns out that they value independence first and foremost, and relationships next. Want to know their occupational interests? Occupational interests are preferences for particular work environments and outcomes. For example, investigative interest means an interest in working with ideas and thinking. For medical and health services managers, 3 interests are the key: enterprising, conventional, and social. Now on to what medical and health service managers actually do. Here's an excerpt from the list of general tasks. Tasks are work activities that are specific to each occupation. For example, for computer programmer, it might be analyzing and testing computer programs to identify errors. For medical and health services managers, on top of the list are directing, supervising, and evaluating work activities of medical and other personnel, recruiting, hiring, and training, developing and implementing organizational policies and procedures, indeed a lot of what we could call HRM tasks, and not surprisingly. ONET report also provides extensive data on work context, covering a wide range of issues, from, as you can see on this list, the modes of communication, email, phone or face-to-face, to time pressure, to sedentary style. Not only can you find out what these managers do, you can also discover what they don't do. Well, sorry, this is not serious. I'm just trying to introduce a bit of a lightheartedness into the topic. So from the work context, you can find that medical managers are very rarely, if ever, spend time climbing ladders, scaffolds or poles, or in an open vehicle or equipment. ONET also provides other useful information. For instance, in addition to just skills, ONET occupational reports cover, in a special section, technology skills and identify specific software that is particularly useful in this occupation. Little flames stand for what ONET calls hot technology, a technology requirement frequently included in employer job postings. It also provides a section on tools used in this occupation. Now, for medical managers, this is not terribly exciting, but may be important for other occupations. And if you're looking for a job in the US, you may be interested in the section of report called Wages and Employment Trends, which shows median wages and projected growth or decline in the jobs in this particular occupation. All in all, ONET provides a wealth of information on occupations. You can use this data to develop a very detailed job description and person specification for any job. All it takes is 5 easy steps. First, identify the relevant occupation that matches the job you're interested in. Next, in the ONET Online, locate the relevant occupation. Then, download the summary, detailed, or custom report. From the ONET descriptors in the report, identify the desired descriptors most relevant to the purpose of the work analysis you are conducting. For example, tasks or skills for designing training programs, skills or traits for choosing selection instruments. And finally, use this data to inform your own in-house data collection. For example, you can use the incumbents or subject matter experts to verify the existing ONET information in relation to the role under analysis. Or you can generate company-specific information to augment ONET data. For example, you can identify the knowledge that would be germane to particular software systems. You can describe the responsibilities in the language of a particular business function rather than in generic terms as ONET does, and so forth. To help you develop good working knowledge of ONET for your Week 7 homework, the unit task, we invite you to look at a particular occupation. Individually, you will need to download the occupation description file and the work analysis design worksheet from your online module. You don't need to actually go to ONET to do this. We have already downloaded it from ONET and posted it on your online module for your convenience. Each team within your study group will be assigned a particular occupation. So you will need to examine only the occupation assigned to your team. From the ONET report, you will need to identify the most important abilities for the job and then write a brief description of abilities for the person specification section of an advert that would advertise a job based on this occupation. You will also need to consider what other data you would need to collect if you want to tailor the job description that you created based on the ONET report to the needs of a particular organization. You also need to think where you can get this data and how you would collect this data. Note, you don't have to actually collect this data, you don't have to go into the actual organization, you just need to think about how you would do it if you had to tailor ONET data to the requirements of a particular organization. All the details for this unit task, of course, you can find where? In your online module in the summary section of week 7. And when you have done this homework, you will then need to post on Blackboard in the discussion forum for Seminar 3 some output from this unit task. What do you need to post? You need to post your ability section of the person specification and your description and justification of additional data that you may need in order to tailor the ONET information to a specific organization. You also need to explain from whom and how you would be able to collect this data. Then in your team, you need to come up with a joint consensual team decision on what this data are and what data sources and data collection methods could be. You must consider what is practical, acceptable, and cost efficient. And then you also need to identify the dominant type or types of ability required for the job. This will create a link between this topic and the next, the topic of individual characteristics and behavior that we'll be covering in the forthcoming week. And you need to develop your mini person specification for the advert. And then you need to present your findings at the seminar. And more details on this will be, of course, as usual, on your Seminar 3 discussion forum. Now, again, a bit of an explanation, yes. Why do we ask you to do this task and this seminar work? 3 reasons. Firstly, you'll get a better understanding of ONET reports and how to use them and you will learn to translate an occupational description from the ONET into a real draft of a job description. You will also get a better grip on and understanding of how to identify additional data sources and data collection methods that would be required to transform this draft into a final job description. And the third gain is that because this activity entails teamwork, it will help you further hone your teamworking, leadership, communication, and presentation skills. By the way, what about the fourth ONET resource, the Toolkit for Business? Well, this is provided for you in your online module, so I'm not going to spend too much time discussing it here. So, we have covered all the ONET resources, and as a final point, let's look at how you can use ONET for your career development. I have already noted when I described your Week 7 activity how you can use the ONET questionnaire for this purpose. So once you have work analyzed your own job, as we ask you to do, you can use this information as a basis for presenting your knowledge, skills, abilities, and other attributes in your CV. You can also use ONET occupation description to help with your CV building. When you're applying for a particular job, go to ONET and get a detailed occupation description for this job. And then from the ONET report, identify the top knowledge, skills, abilities, and other attributes. You also identify the task and experience and the tools and technology required or desirable for this job. And then what you can do is you can highlight this specifically on your CV so that you can demonstrate your match with the job characteristics. Obviously, you also need to match to the actual job description, but this vary and are not always constructed particularly well or properly because not everyone does a good job at job analysis, and not every organization does job or work analysis before they put together a job description and personal specification. So by checking with ONET, you can demonstrate your fit with the standard occupational requirements based on what ONET tells you, and then you can, of course, finesse based on the actual job description of the job. So, that is all that I wanted to tell you about work analysis and ONET. Great practical tool. And all it takes really is a bit of an experience, a bit of practice, and you'll practice using ONET in the activities and in the unit task and in the seminar. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask in your lecture discussion forum. And it's goodbye for now, and see you soon in the next lectures and seminars.